So today's video is going to be very interesting. I'm going to be exposing Martin Luther King and Meek Mill because as you can see, Meek Mill looks very similar to Martin Luther King. And I really want to make this video because there's so many people that believe that Martin Luther King Jr. was actually a real person, but in reality, he was a controlled opposition agent to push an agenda, just like every other controlled opposition character does. They always present themselves as if they're a real person, and then they either get locked up or killed, and in most cases, both. And that happened in Martin Luther King's case because he was arrested 29 times, and then they removed his character from the world stage. So he's a character like everybody else, and they're still recycling his face today because as you guys can clearly see, he looks very similar to Meek Mill. And of course, we got Meek Mill doing one-eye symbolism, and he has a chain that's doing the diamond symbolism. So anyways, here's some more pictures of Martin Luther King and Meek Mill so that you guys can see how much Meek Mill looks like Martin Luther King, because right here they look so much alike. This one is completely undeniable, and this one is very shocking to a lot of people. You know, when I first found out about this, I was surprised that I never noticed it sooner because people expect Martin Luther King to be hiding somewhere, but they never do that. With these big characters, they love making another big character and putting him right in your face. And that's exactly what they did with this character. You know, they love presenting you with the same character multiple times. And that's exactly what they're doing right here. In this comparison, you can really see the resemblance, and it's undeniable. You know, the more you look at it, the more you'll start to see it. They even have the same eyes, and you can really see that right here. They have the same mouth as well. Here's a couple more comparisons of Meek Mill and Martin Luther King. And another similarity with them is their names. They both start with an M, so that's another very interesting similarity. And right here you can see they even have the same mannerisms, and they look so much alike. So now let's move on to all of the connections. So as you guys can see, somebody made this meme and they said, I guess all dream chasers look alike. And that's a very interesting connection because Martin Luther King is most known for the speech that he did called I Have a Dream. And of course, Meek Mill has multiple albums called Dream Chasers. So do you guys think that's a coincidence? Meek Mill's most famous albums are called Dream Chasers, and Martin Luther King's biggest speech is called I Have a Dream. So they're putting this right in our face. They always give us hints as to who their other character is, and clearly Meek Mill is letting us know in plain sight that his base character is Martin Luther King. And as you guys can see, not only is he promoting money, jewelry, cars, smoking, and lustful women, he's also doing one-eye symbolism with the smoke at the bottom. And I noticed that he's doing one-eye symbolism in all 4 of his Dream Chaser albums. And in the second one, he's doing one-eye symbolism again because this is a side shot where you can only see his left eye. And this is also one-eye symbolism. And again, he's promoting smoking and money in this album cover. This character loves to promote a lot of agendas with his music and his album covers. You know, he even had a very controversial album cover, which I'll get to later. So in Dream Chasers 3, he's also doing one-eye symbolism again because you can only see one of his eyes and the other eye is a lion. And I talked about the lion symbolism in my recent video about Kylie Jenner and Doja Cat. So make sure you guys go check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. So then with Dream Chasers 4, he's doing one-eye symbolism again because one of his eyes has a bandage and the other one is bruised, so you can't really see it. So he's literally doing one-eye symbolism in all 4 of his Dream Chaser albums. And he even has a record label called Dream Chasers Records. So he lets us know in plain sight that his main slogan is Dream Chasers, which is about chasing a dream. And Martin Luther King's main slogan was chasing his dream. So that's a very big connection. And I noticed that he has this vlog called Dream Chasers Never Sleep. And I've mentioned this multiple times in multiple videos that they love referencing the fact that they don't sleep. Because if you notice, they put out so much content that you start to question how are they even having the time to do this, because real humans don't have that much time in the day to make as much content as they do. Like YoungBoy, for example, he drops like 6 or 7 albums every year. So obviously these characters are not human. That's why they always mention the fact that they never sleep. So he even has another album called Dreams and Nightmares, where again he's referencing dreams, just like Martin Luther King. And he even has a song where he literally admits that he's Martin Luther King because he says he had a dream They say he's king like Martin Luther the Doctor.
Had a dream, they say I'm king like Martin Luther the Doctor.
And then he even has another song with Young Jeezy called MLK Boulevard, which is him again admitting who his other character is in plain sight. And the big connection with this is that Meek Mill literally has his own street in Philly. Here's a picture of the street that was named after Meek Mill. And this is a big connection because everyone knows that Martin Luther King has his own street in multiple states. And it's called Martin Luther King Boulevard. And he literally has a song with that title. And then on top of that, Meek Mill has a song called King, which is again another reference to Martin Luther King because that was his last name. And another connection is that Young Thug has a song called MLK. And this is also a connection because Young Thug and Meek Mill have a song together called Hundreds. And they sampled I Had a Dream from Martin Luther King in the beginning of this song. So that's another direct connection that Meek Mill has with his other character, Martin Luther King. And they even put Martin Luther King as the cover of this song, as you guys can see on the left. And I don't know why they made his forehead so big, but regardless, this is another connection. In 2018, Meek Mill talked about prison reform and he said, "I don't want to be Martin Luther King, I'm still Meek Mill." Then 2 years later, he said a very similar thing again, and he said, "I'm not Meek Mandela or Meek Luther King, Meek from the trenches just holding down his people like he said he would when he got rich." So these two statements are very contradictory because he made this tweet in May of 2020, and 7 months later, on December 29th, 2020, Meek Mill compared himself to Martin Luther King on Clubhouse. So he's directly contradicting himself and putting it in plain sight once again that he's Martin Luther King with this Clubhouse argument that he did in December of 2020. And another big connection is that even Tekashi 6ix9ine admitted that Meek Mill is Martin Luther King. So Tekashi 6ix9ine takes shots at Meek Mill again by calling him a wannabe Martin Luther King for not protesting after Meek released a song dedicated to current issues in America with Other Side of America. So not only is the fact that he's making these type of songs a connection to Martin Luther King, but the fact that 6ix9ine is openly admitting in plain sight that Meek Mill is Martin Luther King is crazy because I've already shown you so many connections, including Meek Mill admitting himself. So there's just so many times where they've put this in the media and it's not a coincidence. So 6ix9ine said if Kanye, who is way more famous than all these rappers, is outside protesting with the people, why is the wannabe Martin Luther King not, but has no problem dropping a song during times like this to capitalize? So this is another clear connection that Martin Luther King is Meek Mill. So when I was doing research on this, I noticed that they already did damage control in 2015 because every time regular people notice that celebrities have multiple characters, they always do damage control. You know, every time there's so many people that notice it, they make these articles saying, is rapper Meek Mill the grandson of Martin Luther King? You know, they make these fake narratives that nobody's even talking about. You know, people were just talking about how much they look alike and how weird it is for two random people to look that much alike. Nobody was really saying that he was his grandson, but they love being the controlled opposition and creating a narrative for people to follow because that's exactly what controlled opposition does. You know, they sprinkle little bits of truth, but in the end, their main agenda is always wrong. So right here, they're trying to say that he might be his grandson, but obviously we know it's way deeper than that because these two characters look way too much alike for this to just be his grandson. And keep in mind, Meek Mill looks way more like Martin Luther King than Martin Luther King's own sons. You know, his son looks nothing like him. So this is how I know it's deeper than them just being related. You know, this is literally one of his characters that they created after they killed off his character. So now let's get into the Gematria because not only do these two characters look so much alike, they're even connected with numbers. And like I said in my recent video, I don't recommend that you guys do Gematria on yourself because that's witchcraft. And the only reason I'm showing Gematria in my videos is because I'm exposing the sorcery and the witchcraft that they're doing when they're coding these characters. So again, do not do Gematria on yourself because that's considered divination. And the Bible is very clear about why we shouldn't practice that. So if you're going to use Gematria, only use it to expose the scripting and the sorcery of these characters. So anyways, as you guys can see, Meek Mill's real name is Robert Rameek Williams. So he got his stage name Meek Mill from his middle name Rameek. And as you guys can see, Rameek has the same gematria as Martin, which is his other character. They both equal 42. And Martin Luther King Jr. faked his death in 1968. And Meek Mill's real name, Robert Williams, equals 68. So that's a major connection right there. What are the chances that his other character dies in 1968 and his new character's real name just so happens to equal 68? Come on now, I can't make this up. And it gets even deeper than that because Meek Mill was born in 1987 and Martin equals 87. So that's another direct connection to his other character. And a lot of people don't know this, but Martin Luther King's real name is actually Michael. So Martin Luther King was born Michael King Jr. in 1929. But in 1934, his father, who was a pastor in a Baptist church, traveled to Germany and became inspired by the Protestant Reformation leader, Martin Luther. So as a result, his father changed his own name as well as his son's name, who we now know as Martin Luther King Jr. So this is a very weird story. Why would someone name their son Michael King and then change their mind 5 years later after traveling to Germany and naming their son and themselves after this controlled opposition leader named Martin Luther? You know, they love shouting out other controlled opposition characters, and that's exactly what they're doing here. You know, it just doesn't make sense that someone would name their son after this German guy 5 years after he's born. You know, it's a very weird story. So that just shows that Martin Luther King has been a character his entire life, just like every other celebrity. So moving along, Meek Mill's middle name Rameek has the same gematria as Martin Luther King's real name, which is Michael King Jr. They both equal 120. And then Meek Mill's first name Robert has the same gematria as Michael, which is MLK's actual real name, and Masonry. They all equal 33 and 39 in the same ciphers, and Robert and Masonry both equal 84 in the same ciphers as well. So clearly both of these characters are not only connected to each other, but also to Masonry, and that's not a coincidence. Because as you guys are going to see later, Martin Luther King does a lot of Masonic rituals, and he does a lot of symbolism as well. So the next connection is the fact that Meek Mill's birthday is May 6th, right? And this date is 5/6 because May is the 5th month. So 5/6 is basically 56. And Michael King equals 56. So again, another direct connection between Martin Luther King's name and Meek Mill's birthday. And Church of Satan also equals 56, which is very interesting because it's even in the same cipher as Michael King. So this is why you shouldn't worship any celebrities and you shouldn't idolize them or think that they're real, because they're all working for the Church of Satan at the end of the day. And notice how Death Faker equals 56 as well. And Martin Luther King ended up faking his death. So that's very interesting. Now let's get into the number 44, because that number is used heavily with death fakers. So Martin Luther King died on April 4th, which is literally 44, because April is the 4th month. So this date is 4/4, like 44, and kill equals 44. So his entire death is scripted. Right here it says that Martin Luther King enrolled to Morehouse College in 1944. So that's another 44 connection. And also I want to read this to you guys real quick because this shows how Martin Luther King was very involved, because people that are involved get special privileges that regular people can't get. So for example, right here it says that Martin Luther King skipped grades 9 and 12 and then he enrolled in Morehouse College in 1944. And this doesn't make sense because how can somebody skip grade 9 and 12 when those two grades are 3 years apart? You know, it doesn't make sense. But this shows that he's clearly a character on the world stage, and that's why they were able to do this. And they did this so that he can specifically join this college in 1944, because he later ended up dying on 4/4, like 44. So anyways, moving along, even his name is connected to death. So Martin Luther King equals 97, just like death. And his last name King equals 41, just like Death Hoax. And then his real name, Michael King, equals 61, just like fake death. So this character's death was definitely faked and scripted. So his most famous speech, I Have a Dream, was originally published on August 28th, right? And kill equals 28. So that's very interesting. That proves even further that everything about him is scripted. Because what are the chances that his most famous speech was on August 28th, which matches with kill, and he ends up getting killed 5 years after this speech in 1968. So now let's talk about the guy that his dad named him after, which is Martin Luther. So this character was born in Germany in 1483. That number should already be a red flag because murder equals 83 and Martin Luther King equals 83. So his entire name and character is scripted with murder, and of course he ended up getting murdered. And then to get even deeper with this, he was shot in Memphis, Tennessee. And Memphis is scripted with the number 38. As you guys can see, Memphis and killing both equal 38 in the same cipher, and they also equal 34 and 43 in the same cipher. And this is why many celebrities have been faking their deaths in Memphis. Like for example, Big Scarr was a Memphis rapper, and I made a video about him, so I recommend you guys check that out. The link to this video is in the description below. And I also made a video about young Dolph, because he was another death faker from Memphis. And then Gangsta Boo was another rapper that faked her death, and she was from Memphis as well. And Divine Sade made a good video about that. So if you guys are interested in these 3 videos, the links are in the description below. So the reason why Memphis is a very popular place for these demons to fake their characters' deaths is because there's literally a city in Egypt called Memphis. So it's in plain sight, because as I've exposed in multiple videos, the kings in ancient Egypt are the same deities that are deceiving people right now as celebrities. You know, I talked about that in my Michael Jackson video because he has a statue from ancient Egypt that looks exactly like him. So I'll put a link to that video as well in the description for those of you that haven't seen it. But yeah, that's why they reference ancient Egypt so much, because they are the same kings and queens that were deceiving us back then. And people are still blinded by the fact that these are the same demons that are deceiving us today. And people even think that the ancient Egyptians were good people, but they weren't. You know, I wouldn't recommend following any of ancient Egyptian beliefs, because as you guys can see right here, the ancient Egyptians were pagan. You know, right here it says that ancient Egyptian religion followed a wide set of pagan beliefs with many gods and deities who were believed to control the forces of nature. So ancient Egyptians were worshipping demons and Lucifer, and there's many new age spiritual people today that are trying to get people to worship that, but little do they know they're actually worshipping these evil deities and Lucifer. So I don't recommend studying ancient Egypt because it's all blasphemy and demonic. But anyways, back to the connection with ancient Egypt and Memphis. As you guys can see, to prove my point even further, they even have a pyramid in Memphis, Tennessee, which is yet again another reference to ancient Egypt. So they're letting you know in plain sight who they are and what they're worshipping. So anyways, Meek Mill is also connected to murder, because as you guys can see, Meek and murder both equal 34. So there's a high possibility that this character might fake his death as well, because his base character faked his death. So once a death faker, always a death faker. And as you guys can see, Meek and death both equal 20 as well. And when he was beefing with Drake, they made this meme about Meek Mill dying. So this could be predictive programming of Meek Mill's death. And his full name, Robert Rameek Williams, equals 322, which is the same number on the Skull and Bones logo. And this Skull and Bones logo is an invert, by the way. If you notice, half of the skull is a male structure and the other half is a female structure. And one of the crossbones is a male bone and the other one's a female bone. So this is yet another inverted symbol, because the devil loves inverting everything, especially gender. So now let's talk about the Malcolm X connection, because Martin Luther King was very scripted with Malcolm X, and people think that both of these characters are real, but they're both characters and they were both pushing the same agenda around this time. So Malcolm X died at 39, right? What are the chances that the person that he's always compared to, which is Martin Luther King, also died at age 39? And Martin Luther King died 3 years after Malcolm X. So both of these characters died at the same age around the same time. Do you guys really think that's a coincidence? And on top of that, when you reverse 39, which is the age that they died, you get 93. And Martin Luther King Jr. equals 93. So now let's talk about Malcolm X because he did a lot of symbolism. And this needs to be pointed out because these characters are channeling demons when they do this symbolism. And that's something you guys have to understand because there's many controlled opposition agents like AndrewTate that are saying it's just a mudra for power and stuff like that. It's way deeper than that. These characters are literally channeling demons when they do this. So if you're watching somebody like Malcolm X or AndrewTate and they start doing symbolism like this, they're channeling demons into your life. So stay far away from these controlled opposition characters. They're no different than any other demonic celebrity. And as you guys can see, he even has a picture with Martin Luther King. And notice how he's winking one eye, which is one eye symbolism. But this is also a very evil gesture. And the Bible warns us about this in Proverbs 6:12 through 14. A worthless person, a wicked man, goes around speaking dishonestly, winking his eyes, signaling with his feet, and gesturing with his fingers. He always plots evil with perversity in his heart. He stirs up trouble. So right here, God is letting us know in the Bible to beware of false teachers that are winking their eyes when they speak and that are gesturing with their fingers when they teach and when they speak. So these characters are channeling demons, and that's something that people really need to know because right now Andrew Tate has so many people desensitized to it that it's starting to be normalized to do this, and it's allowing them to get away with doing it in plain sight. That's why Andrew Tate is a very disgusting character, and I talked about that in my video about him because he's desensitizing people to that symbolism, and people think it's cool now. There's also this picture of Malcolm X doing the 666 hand gesture in plain sight. And again, the Bible warns us about the number 666 in Revelation 13:18. It says that the number of the beast is 666. So these characters love doing that symbolism for 666. They're letting you know that they're working with the beast, which is Lucifer. And right here you can see Martin Luther King also doing the 666 symbolism along with the horns in plain sight. And then right here we got Meek Mill doing it in plain sight as well. And he's also winking one eye as well. I just noticed that right now. And then right here, he's just blatantly doing it right in front of your face. And what I noticed is that back then, people weren't desensitized to symbolism, so they had to hide it when they did it. You know, and you can see that right here. Martin Luther King is secretly doing the horns in this picture, and it took me a while to notice it, but if you look closely, he's not holding his hands in a regular way, as most people do. He has his index finger and his pinky finger doing the symbolism, but it's very hidden. Even though it's still in plain sight, it's still hidden in plain sight because back then they weren't able to get away with just doing it right in front of your face. So here's another example of him doing the devil horns secretly without anybody noticing. You know, he's slightly showing the pinky and the index finger in this picture right here. And again, he's doing it right here as well. He's slightly lifting up his pinky finger to not make it too obvious that he's doing this symbolism. And if you compare the symbolism that Martin Luther King did to Meek Mill, you can really see the difference because nowadays they're way more blatant with the symbolism. You know, right here he's blatantly showing you that he's demonic, whereas back then they had to be more secretive about it and do it more subliminally to where most people wouldn't notice it. But people are so desensitized now that they don't even care when they see their favorite celebrity doing this. They actually think it's cool, which is very disturbing that people are that dumbed down in society right now. And it's all due to these celebrities constantly dumbing people down and pushing the line. So here we got Meek Mill again doing symbolism in plain sight. And when they do these horns, they're referencing the Baphomet because the Baphomet has a goat head with horns, as you guys can see right there. So then right here we got Meek Mill once again doing symbolism in plain sight right in front of your face. They're not even hiding it anymore. And this is also symbolism when they're doing the thumbs up or they're clenching their fist. It's also symbolic to sorcery because it looks like he's holding a wand. So they're letting you know in plain sight that they do magic and that they're channeling demons. And this one is just in plain sight. I showed this in the beginning of the video. He literally has a chain that's doing the diamond symbolism. and he's putting it on one of his eyes. And then right here, Martin Luther King doing one eye symbolism again, but he's trying to be secretive about it again by just making it look like it's a coincidence that the mic just so happens to be covering one eye. And then everyone's seen these pictures of Meek Mill where he has the bandage on his right eye and his left eye is bruised. And this is very symbolic to the Antichrist, because in Zechariah 11:17 it says that the Antichrist will be struck by a sword against his right eye and against his arm. And then it says that his right eye will be totally blinded. So that's why they do this one eye symbolism. They're making a reference to the Antichrist. And I talked about this more in depth in my recent video, so go check that out. So anyways, right here, he's making a reference to ancient Egypt again, like I told you guys, with this Eye of Horus that he's using to cover one eye. And he even has the Eye of Horus tatted along with the Ankh on his chest. And I noticed that he has his 18th Street chain on right here, and die equals 18. So again, this could be hinting at the fact that this character is going to fake his death. And then right here, he's holding the chain, and he's doing the horns with both of his hands. And then here we got MLK. And pay close attention to this picture and let's see if you notice it. Because not only is he doing symbolism with his finger, but if you look closely, he has his left arm on his knee to make a triangle. So that's symbology as well. And like I said, he's doing this silence symbolism, which is a reference to the seventh seal, which is silence in heaven. And like I said in my last video, 6 out of the 7 seals have already happened. And the final 7th seal is silence in heaven, which means God and all his angels are going to come down to take his people, and heaven will be silent for half an hour. So that's why they do that symbolism. And then right here we have MLK doing this kneeling ritual. And notice that everybody behind him is just blindly following what he's doing. But little do they know that this is actually a Freemasonic ritual. And as you guys can see, Colin Kaepernick also did this as well. And most people don't know that this is a ritual in Freemasonry. Here's a couple examples of them doing taking the knee rituals in Freemasonry. So this is why they've been doing this one a lot in the media lately. You know, with Damar Hamlin as well. They all took the knee that night. And right here you can see this guy taking the knee in this ritual at this Masonry lodge. So this is nothing new. And if you guys look right here, this George character was also a part of the taking the knee ritual. And then right here you can see the military doing it as well. So none of this is new. There's even protesters doing it. And we see this all the time. And people don't know the actual meaning behind it. And here's another example where they're doing the 3rd degree ritual. So don't just blindly follow what you see in the media. Everything they do is a ritual. So now let's talk about Martin Luther King, because he was literally affiliated with the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. In the picture on top, he's with Jacob Rothschild. And in the picture on the bottom, he's with Nelson Rockefeller. So this is proof that he's involved with the occult. You know, these billionaires are in families that run the entire world stage. And I can't really talk about them too much on here, but I'll be exposing them deeper on Patreon, so stay tuned for that. The link to my Patreon is in the description below. And right here you can see Martin Luther King with the Pope. So he's clearly involved with these higher up occultic leaders and billionaires, and people still believe that Martin Luther King was real when he's literally involved with them in plain sight. And these pictures are not hard to find. It's just that people don't do their own research to really find out the truth of these characters. They just blindly believe what the media says. And this is another connection to Meek Mill, because for some reason Meek Mill is heavily connected and associated with billionaires as well. Right here you can see him with Michael Rubin, who is another billionaire. So if you guys remember in my Carmelo Anthony and FBG Doug video, I talked about how Carmelo Anthony is another one of Martin Luther King's characters, because as you guys can see, he looks a lot like him right here. So Martin Luther King has multiple characters. If you guys are interested in that video that I made about Carmelo Anthony and Martin Luther King, I'll put a link in the description below. And there was this theory long ago that Don King was also one of Martin Luther King's characters. And I used to believe it, but the more research I did, I actually ended up realizing that Don King is actually one of Lawrence Fishburne's characters. As you guys can see, he looks a lot more like him than Martin Luther King. So I just wanted to clear that up. It's important to understand that Martin Luther King is actually Carmelo Anthony and Meek Mill, He's right in front of our faces, and he's hiding in plain sight, and people don't even notice it. So yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. I will be exposing Don King and Lawrence Fishburne in a separate video because Lawrence Fishburne has many characters, and there's so many of them that are older from hundreds of years ago. So that's going to be a very interesting video as well. So now let's talk about the Martin Luther King statues that they made that are very symbolic and disturbing, because this is a very weird statue and it went viral because it looks perverted. You know what I mean? Like, it looks like something, and I can't say what it looks like, but you guys should understand what I'm saying. And when I first seen it, I thought that's what it was. You know, it's supposed to be a statue of an embrace that Martin Luther King did with somebody, but it looks way more disgusting than that. You know, it's just a very disturbing statue in general, and I don't understand why someone would even make something like this, but it's clearly meant to be perverted in plain sight. And Martin Luther King has so many statues, man. Out of all the celebrities I've exposed, I think he has the most statues created of him. And God condemns this in the Bible. You know, God specifically lets us know to not make any statues or images of any people or any deities, not even him. So God doesn't even want us to make statues of him, because when you make a statue or an image of something, you're worshiping that statue instead of God. So, of course, these demons go completely against what God said, and they make so many statues of these demons for people to worship and idolize. And this one is really creepy because he has people's faces on him. You know, he has so many statues. I'm just going to show you guys the ones that I screenshotted. But he literally has hundreds of statues, way more than I found. You know, it's crazy how they made so many statues to idolize this demon, and nobody really questions it. But I'm here to let you know that if you have any statues or images of these deities or characters, I recommend you throw them out, because God clearly let us know in Exodus chapter 20, verse 3 and 4, "You shall not have other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water underneath the earth." So God is clearly letting us know to not make any carved statues or images and to not bow down to them. And ironically, this guy is bowing down to this Martin Luther King statue right here. So this is not right what they're doing, because they're making this character into a god for people to worship. And I noticed that in this picture right here of this statue of Martin Luther King, he looks a lot like Meek Mill. So I found it interesting that even Martin Luther King's statue looks exactly like Meek Mill. So last thing I want to talk about is Meek Mill's perverted agenda. And I don't want to show you guys this picture for too long because there's so much disgusting images in this picture. So he has this album cover where he literally has naked cartoon women on this album cover to just destroy the minds of the youth. And these women are strippers that are on this black and white Masonic floor. And there was a lot of controversy with this because he literally put this album cover on a bus in public for people walking around to see. And this is disturbing because there's kids that walk around that can see this and that most likely did see this. And now their minds are filled with this disgusting imagery that he put out for everyone to see. You know, so it's very disgusting what these demons are doing. They want everybody to sin and fall, so don't fall for their traps. But anyways, this character is very inverted. Not only does he look like an invert, but this outfit that he's wearing is obviously pink, white, and blue, which is referencing the inverted flag because their colors are pink, white, and blue. And he used this picture of Drake where he looks very feminine when he made a diss song about him, which I found very contradictory because yes, Drake is feminine and inverted, but coming from Meek Mill is kind of contradictory because he literally has this video where he's sticking out his butt for Diddy, and Diddy calls him daddy in this video. Check this out.
You deserve it, daddy. You putting in that work. Proud of you. I love you. Yeah.
And then he made a tweet in 2021 where he said he needs vibrating panties with a remote, and he asked if they're on Amazon. So this is a very disgusting character, and he's very inverted. Right here, he's even wearing this purse. You know, it's a bag with a strap, but he's wearing it like a purse. And then right here, he's matching with Diddy. They're wearing matching outfits, and his face says it all, man. He's doing this very fugazi grin, that just lets you know that he loves Diddy a little too much. And also this midget right here is doing symbolism as well. And then he has multiple pictures and videos where men are literally holding him, which is very sus because no man should be holding you from the back like this. And he tries to get away with it by just acting like they're just riding a bike. But it's obviously way deeper than that because he even has a video where 21 Savage is holding him from the back while they ride this bike. So yeah, this character is just very fugazi and inverted. And he was created to dumb down the youth. You know, he has many videos where he's doing stupid things. And I'm going to show you guys all those videos right now. Along with very sus videos of old men dancing on him. There's this video of this old white man throwing it back on him. And he even grabs his crotch. And Meek Mill posted it. And in the caption he said, OG tried to throw it back on him. So I'll show you guys all of those videos right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to drop a like, share, subscribe, turn on post notifications, subscribe to my Patreon. The link's in the description below. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I'm out.
Oh, it's in! Oh! Why are you doing bunny hops, Meek? Because you got your ass beat in tennis. You got your ass beat. Keep going. Count out loud.
That's the wrong time.
Count out loud.
30,
Can't, huh?
4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 41, 42.
Keep going. Keep going.
7, 8, 9, 1, 2.
Keep going. Keep going. Don't cheat on your bunny hops. They suck. Your bunny hops suck. You got 250 more to go.
So in that video, Michael Rubin, the billionaire that Meek Mill is always with, made him bunny hop in a video as a humiliation ritual. And there's a connection here with Martin Luther King as well, because when I was putting together this video, this picture really stood out to me of Martin Luther King because I couldn't figure out why he has this famous picture where he's holding the podium like this. You know, it's a very strange picture. It doesn't make sense for him to be taking a picture like this. But when you realize that his other character is Meek Mill, and Meek Mill is bunny hopping, and he's making his hands like a bunny when he's hopping. So when you look at that and you see this picture of Martin Luther King where he's putting his hands in front of him like a bunny as well, you can see the similarities, you know. And at first I thought it was just a coincidence, but then I looked even deeper into it, and this is a clear connection because Martin Luther King is also connected to Easter because he faked his death on April 4th, 1968, which was exactly 10 days before Easter that year. And as we all know, nowadays they celebrate Easter with bunnies and eggs. So I know this sounds funny, but don't you guys find it weird that they're both connected to bunnies in some way, and they both have pictures where they're symbolizing a bunny? And it's deeper than just a bunny because the bunny is what they replaced Jesus with, because they used to celebrate Easter because according to them, that's the day that Jesus resurrected from the dead, which honestly, nobody truly knows the actual day when he resurrected. You know, that's just what they say. And I don't recommend celebrating any holidays. But the fact that they replaced Jesus with a bunny is very symbolic because they do that with a lot of these characters. They're replacing Jesus with these celebrities to get you to idolize them and worship them as if they're Jesus. So that's why Martin Luther King appears as this hero of freedom, and they idolize him as if he's Jesus. But Jesus is the one that gives us freedom, and Galatians 5:1 says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." So you guys see how they're trying to replace Jesus with celebrities the same way that they replaced Jesus with a bunny. So that's why Martin Luther King has that picture where he looks like a bunny, and now his new character Meek Mill has a very viral video where he's dancing like a bunny for billionaires. And even Meek Mill has direct connections to Easter. So he has this song called The Trillist, and in this song he says, "He got blood on his money, ether in his soul. Do you know the feeling during Easter with no clothes?" So that's one reference to Easter. Then he made another reference to Easter in his other song called Do That There. And he starts off the song with, "I said I'm cooler than a fan, fresh like it's Easter." So clearly there is a connection to what I'm saying here. The fact that he has 2 songs where he's directly referencing Easter. And on top of that, I even found this tweet from Double XL, because the media is involved in this as well. And they said Meek Mill hit a couple Easter eggs on the clean version of his new album. So again, another connection to Easter right there. And then the last one I found was in 2016. There was articles about Nicki Minaj and Meek Mill taking a picture for Easter, which is weird that they made this a big deal, but now we can see why. And notice the wording in this article right here. It says, "Forget the bunny, Nicki Minaj gets Meek Mill for Easter." So it's very ironic that they brought up Bunny, considering that later on he started bunny hopping for Billionaires. And last thing I want to say about Easter is the Easter bunny and Easter eggs originated as pagan symbols of spring and rebirth. So every single holiday that is celebrated today is pagan because we're not supposed to have any holidays. And this includes birthdays, by the way. A lot of people try to single that one out, but that's pagan as well. And I'll make a separate video exposing all the holidays and their pagan origins. But if you guys remember, we exposed New Year's pagan origins in our recent live stream on Divine Sade's channel, so I'll put a link in the description below for that. So then it says, over the centuries, these ancient symbols became associated with the Christian holiday of Easter, such that the two traditions have merged together to become what some celebrate today. So they merged Christianity with paganism, which is not right. You know, you can't just mix two things that totally contradict each other, because paganism is demonic. As I explained to you guys earlier, all of the ancient Egyptians were pagan. So I just wanted to break that down for you guys, because I don't think it's a coincidence that both of these characters are connected to bunnies and Easter. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say, because that's another direct connection with these two characters. So here's the rest of the videos.
You're a grown damn man.
Grown damn man.
Bro, no real person is taking a picture like this, bro. Or just sitting at the pool with their legs like this, with fries in their lap, bro. No real person is doing that.
Man, what the f is you talking?
What's that?
Bitcoin plunging by almost 30% to $31,000 earlier today.
Period of time. It don't matter if I left or you left, you still gonna, you can have a celly. Nah, you got a celly for 3 months.
Proud when the celly left.
Pack it up, go to new jail. You gonna feel like you just lost a chick. You know how it is. It's just you gonna be
How many
hurt
times
about
you
it.
felt like that?
No, it was the hood.
You ain't never lose your celly and feel like you lost a chick.
No. I lost some cellies that was some good. You know, they went home.
You deserve it, Daddy. You putting in that work. Proud of you. I love you.
His podcast?
Yeah, podcast. We don't even know what a podcast is.
Right here, kicking it live. This is one of the Tucci skateboards. I hope I don't break it. But I'm a universal hood. When the hammers was out, I had the hammers out. When the bikes is out, I bring the bikes out. The skateboard's out now. I'm a universal. That's what I do. Anything I do, I learn how to do good. Well, shit, though, I'm gonna pull this on off, though. That shit's scary.